live post game after game 2, the first round playoff series. The New York Knicks went down. It was a tough game. Boy, EJ, the Cavs adjusted. The New York Knicks struggled in this one, went down 90 to 107. Let's talk about it. How you feeling?
It's a difficult game. It was a really difficult game after the first quarter. It seemed as if this game was a possible one that the Knicks could squeak by, and we can get really greedy, get really fat, get really, rotund, feeling good after game one, and perhaps having the thoughts of stealing a second game in Cleveland. I know a lot of us came into the game really, really, maybe a little cocky, but we got smacked in the mouth. We got punched in the mouth. Quentin Grimes, and that scene with his mouth bloody is indicative of how many of us, probably all of us as Knicks fans, feel after this game. And I think the conversation begins and ends with the last 2 minutes of the game, and Julius Randle taking a fall that I know a lot of heartbeats skipped a beat. So yeah, this was a very frustrating day, a frustrating night,
Yeah.
especially after the highs of the first game. CT, what are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, I'm definitely not going to overreact to this one. I know it's going to be tough for Knicks fans.
Hmm.
To me, we did the dirty work in game one. It's a 7-game series, and not every game is going to be pretty. Um,
Yeah,
Obviously, but am I a bit more worried after tonight? Absolutely. This is definitely going to go 6 or 7. Um, and it showed us, the Cavs showed their metal
yeah,
tonight, and bounced back like they should. Normally there's a reason they were favored heavily in the odds, is because the team that's most desperate, EJ and chat, Knicks Nation, normally that desperation is enough to carry you over the edge. But tonight we saw their desperation and better shot making.
yeah,
Better shot making, amazing defense, just all the characteristics of what made the Cavs a strong team this season, and our worst effort, basically. I mean, we started really well, and we were up 8 points, but then isolation, their defense clammed down.
yeah. Their defense definitely hit another gear.
Mm.
What happened game one? It was very clear tonight by the start of the second quarter that they were taking this very personally.
Mm.
Once they created a level of separation, towards the end of that second quarter, it's almost as if everything that they were doing, they weren't just playing the game, they weren't just playing the team, but they were still playing game one and saying, listen,
Mm.
we were very, very annoyed by a lot of the chatter that happened after game one. So it felt like this was very personal, and it
Mm.
felt very personal.
It did, yeah. We saw the physicality go up.
Hmm.
Um, the moaning about the referees and the Knicks' physicality was definitely a factor in this game, as we knew it would. All of us are old heads that watch playoff ball, EJ, know how the script goes. So I didn't need to proclaim to anyone out here that's watched a lot of playoff ball what was going to happen. Um, the Cavs ramped it up a notch. They didn't want to lose both games
Yeah,
on their home court, exactly the way the Knicks 2 years ago didn't want to lose the first 2 games on their home court. But to me, I'll start with the worst thing first. To me, the most worrying thing is like Emmanuel Quickley in 2 games has looked really bad.
yeah,
RJ Barrett in 2 games has looked even subpar than what we've come to expect. Quentin Grimes, apart from his solid defense in game one, hasn't been able to really catch a break. Um, so it's really going to come down to Julius Randle, um, Jalen Brunson on the road for me, EJ, winning us another road game if we need. But at home, I feel like our role players definitely need to step up.
yeah. I mean, I think that these players are fully aware of this is the
Mm.
playoffs. They're feeling it. I think that there's something to be said about the anxiety, the stress, the enormity of the moment of having to play playoff basketball on the road, and knowing that how well the Knicks did game one. The game one performance covered a lot of concerning aspects. Like, Quickly's performance in game one was a bit troubling. Grimes didn't necessarily have the best of games. RJ didn't have the best of games, but those things get overshadowed when you win a road game. When you win a road game that people didn't necessarily expect for you to win game one. So those concerns become larger once you lose game two, and you lose game two the way that you did. If this were a loss of, like, let's say that less than 5 points or less than 10 points, maybe we're not as concerned about a Quickly's performance or an RJ performance or a Grimes performance. But because really we got smacked in the mouth, and every time I say it, I keep on thinking of Grimes's mouth, and that's what it looked like, with 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. I can just imagine the back pages of the New York papers, the Daily News and New York Post will both have Grimes's face on the front cover, and like they'll have some kind of quirky headline that says Cleveland smacks New York in the mouth, and that's going to be the picture. So yeah, this one hurt.
Most definitely, man. In terms of adjustments, right? The Cavs made that adjustment. I mentioned Danny Green.
Yeah,
You
you
saw
did.
it straight away. I mentioned trapping Jalen Brunson, trying to get the ball out of his hands. They did that. So they brought out a lot of adjustments, and it smacked us in the mouth.
Yeah.
Now we got to bring the next adjustment in the next game, right? It's a back and forth series, and chat EJ, we'll talk about what adjustments you would like to see in game three. But talk to me a little bit about what you saw the Cavs adjust to, and we did underplay it a little bit. I'm happy to eat crow in that regard. Just after game one and how live
We may have lost our friend, our captain, CT, but I think he was about to say how we may have lost certain aspects of game one, um, on the road, but it was covered up by the fact that we won. We won game one. We were excited. We were thrilled. All of us were really exuberant. Some of the memes, some of the videos that came out had some people saying that the Knicks could win, not only win the series, but perhaps even win a 7 game series in 3 games. So that's excited how excited we were as Knicks fans. But tonight was a wake up call. Tonight was a wake up call. So this is your man EJ here for Knicks Buzz. CT is having a little bit of technical difficulties. He will be back shortly in less than a minute. Keep on hitting the like, keep on hitting subscribe, keep on hitting the follow. Make sure to share this with all of your friends who are Knicks fans, who love the Knicks, who love the orange and blue, or rocking the orange and blue on a difficult night, a really difficult night where the Knicks go down to the Cleveland Cavaliers. The series is now tied 1-1. Send in your chats, send in your texts, send in your messages. How are you feeling right now? What are you thinking right now? What are your predictions for game three? What are the things that you think that we need to do as a team? Here's another big thought I want you guys to jot down in the chat right now. Why do you think this game played out the way that it did? Why did the Knicks lose so badly tonight? Make sure to post your chats. I'll shout you guys out as you guys come along. CT will be back, I do promise. So this is your man EJ rolling for the time being. So let's shout out some of the people on Knicks Buzz, the hottest chat in the business. Kaiser Soze, a regular Knicks buzzer, says we did not seek out the contact this game. Cleveland hit us, and we shirked from the contact tonight. Kaiser, I have to agree with you. It kind of felt like this game. There was a lot of hesitation. It's as if the Knicks wanted to play perfectly, but in their efforts to play perfectly, they played tepidly. There seems to be like a lot of plays where they seem unsure of themselves. And because of the fact that they were so unsure of themselves, it led to a lot of turnovers. And because of the poor play, because of the turnovers, it led to inefficiencies, and it led to the further we got into the game, it seemed as if, Kaiser, to your point, we played more inefficiently and with less confidence. And confidence is part of this game. I always talk about how it's not just a physical game, CT, as our man CT joins us right back on Knicks Buzz. This game is not just about physicality, it's about emotions, it's about your mentality, and it's also about confidence. And so, one of the things we need to make sure is, and that's exactly the chat we were just talking about. We need to make sure that this game doesn't hurt the Knicks' confidence. Maybe a blowout was necessary because it's easier to kind of like brush that off and say, okay, listen, we just didn't bring it tonight, but game three, we'll have it back. CT, good to have you back, brother.
Yeah,
What are
yeah,
your thoughts,
appreciate
man?
you.
Of course,
I
man.
appreciate you in the chat holding me down. I'll keep refreshing. I'm on the road, but yeah, no doubt you're on point about the blowout. I think is going to create more storylines, maybe more doubt. But at the end of the day, it's a road game, and a playoff hostile atmosphere is always tough.
Yeah.
And I think it's back and forth, as I was saying before I cut out. It's really about adjustments. The best team wins in a 7-game series because of adjustments. Um, what did we say was the Knicks' strength, EJ, going in?
Well, definitely rebounding and
And depth.
yeah,
Depth,
yeah,
if the Knicks are to win this series, they're going to need more guys to step up. Our depth is supposed to be better. And
yeah,
tonight was Cleveland's depth
yeah.
that stepped up. Yeah,
Especially with
guys that
Danny
are
Green popping
normally,
up.
yeah, I called it. I said he
You
would
did
be
call that.
a solid fit because Dean Wade, he can stroke it a little bit, but he's a bit soft. But
Yeah.
Danny Green adds a little bit more playoff battle toughness. But I'm not too worried about the score. The game was over at halftime, to be
Yeah, it was.
honest.
It was.
I think they knew that Cavs just were not going to let this one go. But what do you feel like? What do you feel the most positive going into Game 3 at MSG? And what do you feel the most worrisome about?
Um, I'll start with the most positive is that the Knicks did win game one. That is, I mean, no matter what happens tonight, and I know all of us in the chat, we don't feel great about what happened tonight. A blowout in the playoffs just doesn't feel good. However, we're in a situation now where we did what we had to do. Is it what we wanted to do? No. I think after game one, all of us were greedy. All of us were licking our fingers as if we were just eating a huge bag of Doritos, and you were trying to figure out what to do with the dust on your fingers. You're like, screw it, I'm gonna go for it, and you're gonna munch on it. Um, so we wanted that second game. We wanted to really take care of business tonight, and clearly that did not happen. But what was the objective? Win one game in Cleveland. We've proven that we can win a game on the road in Cleveland. That's also a huge positive to put in the win column. Now, what am I concerned about? I think it's the obvious. And I've tried this season to be a lot more positive and to not like isolate and nitpick on certain players. But I'm concerned about a few players and their ability to really uh, demonstrate that they're difference makers on a playoff roster. And you guys know that this is tough. RJ, I'm a little concerned. I'm a little concerned. Hopefully, some home cooking will do him well. But there's just something about that mentality of, okay, I can lock in, I can focus, I can get rid of all the noise. Um, my concern is, if RJ misses a shot on the road, you expect for there to be jeers. You expect for there to be like, the typical responses to the Knicks. However, I can imagine MSG, people rolling their eyes or getting frustrated if he makes a poor decision. And it's not necessarily all the shots, it's sometimes just the poor decision making. So I think that's one of my concerns is really RJ and to a certain extent as well. I'm not going to say if it's lesser or the same. My concern with IQ as well. What about you, CT?
Yeah, you hit. I love what you said. But um, I'll first say this bigger picture stuff. I think the good thing we said about the playoffs, EJ, is that it's going to give this team and organization an opportunity to evaluate players. We're evaluating RJ
Yeah,
Barrett's performance now in best believe. You know, if the Cavs win the next 3 games and this series is done, RJ Barrett's a failure as far as
yeah,
I'm concerned. if the performance stays the same.
Yeah.
Now, we might be looking at Emmanuel Quickley and Quentin Grimes different. I'm not saying I don't think they have an amazing future, a bright future in the league, but we're evaluating
No.
bigger picture stuff. So this is what we wanted to see: playoff ball, chat, EJ. We want to see how this squad holds up against some of the best in the league, so that we can do better next year, and
Absolutely.
and make upgrades. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm looking for players that have had a bad 2 games or average to step up. Step up. This is a 7 game series. I don't mind if you have a bad game or two, as long as you produce when we need it. Chat. If you can produce when we need it. But I agree with your concerns. RJ Barrett just looked below par in terms of not even being an impactful player at all, which is worrisome. The
Yeah.
3-point shot. I mean, the confidence is never wavering with RJ. He still tries to be aggressive. So I expect that from RJ. I'm not going to salute him because I expect him to not get rattled, but the confidence has got to be down, no doubt.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
the shots that when they miss, they miss badly.
Yeah.
Um, doesn't seem to be able to get to his spots. The handle is the biggest concern I have in the playoffs when the defense ramps up a notch and you don't have a tighter handle. And then also Julius Randle and Brunson, knowing when to go ISO, knowing when to feed your teammate.
Yeah.
I think they were just completely off the script tonight. They just weren't on the same page. The cuts were off, the passes were off, and I think once the Cavs got that lead, um, my issue, EJ, is in-game adjustments. Also, I think
Hmm.
the coaching staff are going to draw up some nice preparation adjustments, but can the players adjust in the middle of the game? I don't know if we have really high IQ guys.
Dude, everything you just said is it's part of like it's a long. I didn't want to go for a minute, but you're right. Like I would everything you said, I would add to like my concern as well. Like including one more thing, and I know that you'll probably agree with this as well, is tonight the second quarter was of concern because the offensive drought appeared again, where it seemed as if like we were stuck in the 20s throughout the bulk of the second quarter, and that was concerning. You can't in the playoffs be lingering with almost like 5 6 minutes left in this first half, and you're in the high 20s, low 30s in 2023 NBA basketball. And so that's my concern, not just for this season, because obviously the roster is the roster, but that's when it became rather clear that there's a lack of offensive, like that one offensive spark, that one person who can generate offensive consistently, who has the ability to just be a flamethrower. Because we know, like our RJ's ISO heavy. We know that Julius is ISO heavy. We know that Jalen can be ISO heavy. But that can be problematic when you have to keep up bucket for bucket. And so once we hit that 12-point deficit, that's when it started to become really concerning. So that's my other concern, is that fear of another offensive drought that hits either second quarter or third quarter. Typically it had been third quarter, but again, once we were in those 20s, it was like, oh, this is going to be a really hard game to win.
Yeah. The other thing I'll say as a positive is I don't think Cleveland can match this defensive intensity, so we got to be ready for that. But I don't know if they're going to be able to shoot, and their offense is going to look this good every game for the rest of the series.
Hmm.
I think they were definitely getting the home swishes, the home net,
Yeah.
the home whistle, the home crowd.
Yeah.
And we got to take care of home, MSG. This has been the team's kryptonite all season long. Our road strength carried us through to a victory in game 1. Now it's time to stand up at home and face our demons this season and win one, minimum both, hopefully both at MSG, and that'll win us this series, I feel. If we can only win one
Yeah.
at MSG, this is going 7. If we win both at MSG, we're going to win the series. I think so. It could be in our control. It is in our control because we still have home court.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that. One of the things I was going to say about this game in particular is, and when we analyze these games, there's a part of it that's about what did, you know, one team do. But sometimes we might like overlook how one team's success is the byproduct of the other team's failures. There were certain and I would have to rewatch the game, but there just seemed to be certain moments, and chat, tell me if you agree with this. There just seemed to be moments where the squad seemed to be, I don't want, maybe a slight bit mentally tired, a step slow, a step like lethargic. There just seemed to be like a different kind of energy that did not match the energy that existed game one. There seemed to be like this full throttle energy, this like we're gonna push, we're gonna punch you in the mouth kind of energy game one. Game two, we saw that for a little bit first quarter, but second quarter, once the buckets weren't once the shots weren't necessarily going through the hoop, once they didn't get all the calls that they were getting, it just seemed as if like a switch was turned off, and that dog that we know for many of our players to have, it kind of went like in like the leash was kind of like pulled, and like you were sent to the backyard, and like, all right, I guess we're not going to really try to be dogs tonight. And because of that, you saw Cleveland take advantage of it. You saw them have an extra burst when it came to 50-50 balls. That led to like shots that seemed to be contested, but not quite as contested as they should be. CT, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I completely agree. Their desperation carried them to the victory tonight. I'm just really disappointed the way we rolled over, mostly. I can handle losing a game if it's tight, if it's close. They just willed their way, EJ. But I think we rolled over tonight. They trapped Brunson. That slowed us down. He's our engine, and we weren't able to get easy points, fast break points at all. Um, let's look at the stats a little bit. It was 17 turnovers
Yeah,
apiece.
yeah,
Uh, Fast break points was 16 to 18, Cleveland's favor. We lost points in the paint, 38-42. So normally, if we lose points in the paint this season, we've lost the game.
yeah, yeah. It again, it seemed as if, and I would even just focus on the stats for the first three quarters, because I think like by the time we got to the middle of that third quarter, when the lead was like clearly in the 20s, there just seemed to be a different energy. And so by that point, Mitch, how can we even, analyze Mitch's performance tonight? Like, because by the time we get to the second quarter, third quarter, he seemed to be a non-factor, unfortunately. And like, if Mitch is a non-factor, how can we talk about a successful Knicks game at any in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah, you said it. Yeah, their big stepped up first and foremost. Their guards stepped up. Um, we didn't have really any answers to their adjustments from trapping Brunson. I didn't think the ball was swung fast enough, and that's
Yep.
on Jalen Brunson also. I know
Yeah.
he tried to beat the trap a lot of the times, but that just delays your offense, and you're stuck. You lose 6, 7, 8 seconds on the shot clock, EJ, and then everyone else is standing around. So I think we
Yeah.
played in Cleveland's favor, but they're an amazing defensive team. They're top in the league, and they weren't at their best in game one. Tonight they brought their best. Like
Yeah.
tonight they brought it, man. Now talk to me about the home situation, the home dynamic with the New York Knicks. Do you think Cleveland can carry this kind of intensity into MSG, or do you still favor the New York Knicks in a game three and then Cleveland forced to adjust again, game four?
I think the series is really going to be a series. This is going to sound as cliche as it comes, and all of my years as being a sports fan, I'm going to do exactly what I criticize sports radio for doing it. But this is going to be a series of adjustments. And as all of the Knicks buzz chat is saying, if the Knicks do not bring the defensive intensity, Game 3 is going to be all kinds of frustrating, especially because let's keep it a buck, let's keep it 100. Here's what I love about MSG. If the Knicks are performing well, they're going to be really into it. If the Knicks aren't performing well, Knicks fans will really be into it, but they'll really be into booing the hell out of the Knicks roster. So it's unlike a Cleveland, say for example, Cleveland was going to support and push and be ready for anything positive that would have come out of game two. MSG, playoff atmosphere, um, playoff atmosphere for the first time in a couple of years. It's going to be really important that the Knicks have the psychological bounce back that they need. Um, we were talking about this the other night, the pros and cons of having several days off in between games. I think this is actually going to be good for the Knicks to have a few days off, refresh, recalibrate, get out of Cleveland, get home, get to your apartment, get to your house in Saddle River, or wherever you are in New Jersey, or your apartment in Westchester, or your home in Westchester. You have a couple of nights where you can sleep in your own bed. You're not worrying about going to the club. You're going to be focused. Cleveland, they might be feeling really good.
Listen,
might
it's
want to hit,
Cleveland,
One
Ohio,
Oak.
and
Uh,
it's not the greatest city in the world, and I've been there way too many times in my life.
but that's the whole idea, is that now that you're going to come back home, recalibrate, and hopefully that'll be good. And especially for Julius, again, Julius, Jalen, Hart, gives them time to heal and rest up.
Yeah, I like that, man. And as the chat knows, man, role players step up at home. It's no coincidence Cleveland's role players looked elite tonight. They were desperate, and man, their jobs were hanging by a thread. So they answered the call. The same way I've got confidence our role players are going to step up at home. It's still just a dicey proposition for me to win both games. I think we'll definitely win one game in MSG, but then if we don't win both, we give home court back to Cleveland. So that's my worry, really. We might have to win this one in 7 if we don't win both in MSG. But let's stay positive for now. Let's win game 3.
One
Let's
game at a time.
answer the call, and then go into game 4 knowing with that kind of desperation that's the series possibly hanging on that. Because to the chat's point, we want Cleveland to maybe start to feel good about themselves again.
Yeah.
Because the moment in the playoffs when you start to feel yourself, the other team punches you in the mouth. And we were not ready for that punch tonight. We were so not ready. Like I said, I would have happily not happily, but I would have taken a 10 point loss, knowing that Cleveland were going to give us their best tonight. But I'm sick by seeing a 17-point loss.
That's a really good question, CT. Would it have been better tonight if they had lost by 10 or lost by 20?
You make a great question, because I could see positives for both sides. We got a nice kick up the behind, and that's going to definitely create more urgency for game
Mm-hmm.
3. That's
Mm-hmm.
to your point. You're on point. You want urgency, but at the same time, does it hurt the confidence? Do you start to have some self-doubt? How do you think
I
RJ
like
Barrett's
that.
going to sleep tonight? How do you think
Yeah.
Quentin Grimes, Emmanuel Quickley is going to sleep tonight? Look, I think they got some dog in them. I think they're ready to just get to MSG and get some home cooking, get out from these demons. But at the same time, the crowd's not going to be kind to them
No, that's the thing.
at MSG if they're stinking it up still. And is Tom Thibodeau going to quickly make a quick enough adjustment? Derrick Rose, Evan Fournier, Deuce McBride, Jericho Sims. Does Thibs go down with players that are floundering in this series late, or does he make an adjustment?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, when I saw the lead balloon up to 23, there's a part of me that was like, well, this might be the smack in the face that you need to get that concentration back. Um, I'm not saying this works for every player, because there are two great players who are the opposite extremes of it. Michael Jordan was, well, let me start with LeBron. LeBron has been infamous for his zero dark 30 kind of total blackout in terms of social media, not reading the press clippings, just needing to focus, get really zen for a playoff run. Whereas Michael Jordan was infamous for, reading as much stuff as possible, creating bulletin board fodder because he needed that stuff to really motivate him and to focus him. So I think it's possible that, players can be focused by anything, but I do think that there seemed to be a lack of focus in general tonight. Um, that focus that moves you a step faster, that focus that moves you to, like, to be a little bit more aggressive. It just seemed to be a step slow. And Sandman is absolutely right. The Knicks lost the rebounding battle. How can you win a playoff game if you lose the rebounding battle?
Yeah, and talk to me about the officiating. How did you see it? I'm curious to know how you saw
Yeah.
it tonight.
I came out, but from everything that I've been reading and listening to and watching, there were mixed opinions about the officiating game one. And I think that there, to some extent, the same could be true with this particular game as well. There was a lot of chirping by Cleveland and the Cleveland roster about the officiating in game one. Um, but at the same time, did they then benefit from the chirping that took place? I think tonight's officiating, I think there were some calls that were, was there a need to call everything as tightly as they did? Were there some plays that they let go too far? It's kind of hard, but I do think that the reason why I don't want to penalize or chastise rather the referees too much is sometimes I think, and this is something that I think every Knicks fan will agree with, is that sometimes we do get into the habit of looking for the refs to save us after a missed shot or after a blown coverage or a blown, a miss. The refs are not in the business of having to save the Knicks after every possession, after a poor possession, after a turnover, after a blown assignment. So were there missed calls? Yes. Were there frustrating calls? Yes. But again, did Cleveland really? I don't have the stat in front of me, but did Cleveland really blow out the Knicks in terms of free throws attempts versus their own? So
Yeah, nothing out of the norm, I would say,
yeah.
EJ. Like we're probably going to get a more favorable whistle at home, like the same way Cleveland did. But a question I want to ask you, and the chat's talking about it. Like Garland really was
Yeah.
that sidekick, that Spider-Man sidekick tonight. Do you see? Because this could be a series breaker if we
Yeah.
get this type of Garland regularly, and
Hmm.
Randle and Brunson can't match that. It's going to be tough. But I question, we can make adjustments. I don't see Garland playing like this every game. So how do you see that dynamic? We know Spider's going to be juiced up. Although it's funny I say that because Spider has not played well at MSG this
Hmm.
year. The
Yeah.
pressure, the family in the crowd, the hype has seemed to make it tougher on him playing well at MSG. So maybe we don't see a great Spider at MSG. Hopefully not.
Well, that's the funny thing because after game one, I asked the question, like, when we had a conversation about this, is like, what's up with Darius Garland? Um, what's going on? Is this the best that he could produce when Spider Mitchell went off game one? And that was really something I was interested in. I was like, I wasn't necessarily casting a judgment. It was just like, this is a player that a lot of NBA insiders are high on. This is game one of the playoffs at home. And he just didn't seem to really be a focal point for Cleveland, especially in such an important game. And Darius Garland must have seen Nick's buzz. in the past couple of days because he came out, he proved the point. I think for a young player like a Darius Garland, it's now a question of consistency. Can he do it again, game three? I think that remains to be seen. And also, like seeing it in terms of will he have the room to do it if Spider decides, okay, this is game three, this is a game that we need to win to reclaim home court advantage. This is also a game we need to win, and I want to be personally involved in winning this game because you know, it's really important to me that I do play well. New York platform, New York stage. Um, this is an opportunity. So does the Spiders' desire to really be alpha dog during the series, especially game three, then upset whatever rhythm Darius Garland might be able to get off of game two? I think that will be the answer in terms of how well he fares.
Yeah, you said it. It's going to be a fascinating thing to watch. Garland, Spider, how they play at MSG, and like I
Mhm.
said, I expect our role players to step up at MSG. I really do. The pressure has now come back on us a little bit more
Yeah.
because they answered the call tonight, EJ. But I'm still really hyped about the Knicks' chances of winning this series. You know, we won home court advantage back. Let's acknowledge that. You know, sometimes we may just need to. If you're a Knicks player tonight, flush this one down the toilet because we did the hard work. We won game one, and we go back to MSG and we show up. We have to show up. We have to play solid intensity of defense and win the battle of the boards again. Um, I don't care if we have to dust off Jericho Sims. We got to win the rebounding at home. Get back to giving us second chance points. Um, Play solid perimeter defense. Let's not forget, maybe Josh Hart was affected tonight. You know, he's a warrior that wanted to suit up, lace it up, but maybe he wasn't. You know, well, we know he's not 100%. You know, and that intensity we saw in game one was not the same.
So, yeah, I mean, obviously, and that's why I think like the next couple of days, like the fact that the next game isn't until Friday, that's big. That's really huge. That's advantage Knicks. That's absolutely advantage Knicks. If you are the Cleveland Cavs, you want to play a game tomorrow. You want to play a game tomorrow because Darius Garland shooting lights out, Donovan Mitchell being as efficient as he was, Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley really playing as well, and being at the center of all the action. This was a this was the total opposite of what we saw game one. So if you're Cleveland, you actually were hoping that you were playing tomorrow and at the very latest on Thursday. But the fact that you have 2 nights off, the fact that you'll be able to travel, they're probably going to be chartering a plane as soon as they get a chance so that they can get home and get to rest. That's great for Josh Hart. That's great for Julius Randle, especially because of what we saw in the last 90 minutes, last 90 seconds, rather, 90 seconds, 120 seconds of the game. It's great for Jalen Brunson, who it just seems every single game someone has hit him somewhere and caused him pain. This man is a magnet for my man gets he has 6 fouls that he can play every game, but he gets punched in the mouth literally every game. My man is dedicated. So just like Charlie King just said, the Knicks got punched in the face. Hopefully, they'll use the next couple of days to figure out what kind of jab, what kind of right cross do they have to throw to
But
punch Cleveland back in the face.
you know what's affecting that too is Okoro's comments. You know, being the Jordan kind of pettiness, talking
Hmm.
about Brunson flailing his head back and trying to
Hmm.
get in the ref's head. I think there's some mind games going on in this series. Best
Absolutely.
believe that. 4 or 5. This thing's chippy. This thing's gonna be physical at MSG. This is a battle right now. Um, Bigs, guards, coach v coach. And to answer the chat, you know, I think Tom Thibodeau, if we lose this series badly, might be coaching for his job.
That's
Um,
fascinating.
he's had a great season, but it's about adjustments, you know. And I think um, it's the way we lose. I think if we lose in 7, I don't think Tom will be let go. I think he'll be brought back. If we lose in 6, we lose in 5 in a bad way, I could see him I could see them trying to go in a different direction, perhaps. But EJ, let me ask you this. A lot of people have
Mhm.
said this, and Mark Berman, and a lot of people say Tom Thibodeau is a regular season coach. And this is the playoffs now. So my question is to you is, what does Tom Thibodeau need to show you to feel like he's the right person to move forward with this playoff run in mind?
I think that's I think
And
that's a
and
difficult question. Yeah, go ahead.
and just the second part, what would you like to see him adjust to in games 2 or 3, if you think there's a glaring adjustment?
That is a difficult question because does now I'm gonna get myself into trouble. Actually, I'm not because I think that any reasonable Knicks fan actually knows the answer to this. Which coach has the best player on the floor?
Bickerstaff.
And I think, the advantage that we have is our depth, right? But the question is our depth and is the depth of an unhealthy team or relatively unhealthy team enough to overcome the greatness of the best player on the floor? Um, and the reason why this question is so complicated is because are we then also penalizing Thibodeau for the success that he had during the regular season when most of us didn't expect for him to have that kind of success? So all of a sudden we start to say, okay, Coach Thibodeau should have beaten Cleveland when at the start of the season the expectations were play-in, but he exceeded those expectations, and he exceeded them so well that we now expect for an underdog, for a number 5 team to beat a number 4 team. So that's almost like it's a very complicated question to answer because we're almost saying then we should have had higher expectations for the roster and this team from the very beginning of the season. So yeah, it's really hard. Now I do think if the team just get blown out, the conversations about his job security will probably open up again, as we talked about last season with Mark Berman. I think that those front office individuals, I think like for example William Wesley, who weren't necessarily fans of Thibodeau, those feelings don't automatically go away. So if there's an opportunity, there's a crevice that opens up, I'm sure that there will be those who will try to make a power play to get the coach that they would want to really be the head coach of the New York Knicks. However,
Mm.
we have to be honest and say, does he have all of the horses he needs to win the series that they can actually win? So it's a really
Yeah.
difficult question.
Yeah, it could be. I've heard this term sort of thrown around, which is the table setter. To me,
Hmm.
letting Tibbs go may not necessarily say like you failed at everything. You've you've set a great culture. You've got some things in place, and we would just like the next coach to take over now, who may be more innovative. You know,
Hmm.
um, the biggest issue I got with Tom Thibodeau is I guess we're very reliant on isolation. You know, the Knicks' solid offense was very reliant on isolation heavy ball, which we know you need in the playoffs, but get the ball moving a bit. We played into the defense's hands tonight, I felt, by holding onto the ball a bit too long. Um, I know it's difficult when the role players aren't stepping up, but this is what happens in the playoffs. You can get exposed, really. Cleveland moved the ball much better tonight than they did in game one.
Yeah.
Guys got more open looks, and guys made them with Garland, Jetty, and Danny Green, Karis LeVert. A lot of their looks were very open because Spider was more willing to move the rock tonight. Um, now
That's what makes it tough.
Jalen Brunson is a 6 foot guard, EJ, and he was stymied with the trap and the trees tonight. I think he did try to beat that very forcefully at times, and didn't get the ball moving as much as I think he could. But I think he will adjust, and I think in game 3 he'll be better at that.
Yeah, and I also say this too is it's yeah, the Thibodeau, he's just one of those people who he's just a lightning rod for conversation. Like he's just one of those figures in New York sports where half of the fan base love him, half of the fan base hates him, and depending on how the game goes, it might tip back and forth like 5%. We've been talking about Coach Thibodeau's job security since there were rumors they were going to hire him. You know, we looked back at his performance in Minnesota. We looked back at his performance in Chicago. You know, we kept on asking the question, does he going to burn out his players? Does he develop young players? There's almost always been this, we're not quite sold on Thibodeau being the coach that we want. But is he the coach that we need at this point? You know, if we do get that marquee player in the offseason, would the front office be more amenable to moving at Thibodeau and saying, okay, now that he's set the table, we now want this particular coach because Thibodeau has set and developed, to a certain extent, an IQ, a Quentin Grimes. So this is, and let's also be honest too, in New York sports, we love to fire coaches. We love to, like, it's a pastime of New York fans. Like, we fire coaches. And as Knicks fans, I would like, we could play a Family Feud game and it could be name as many Knicks coaches in your lifetime. And like, there'd be 72 answers. And 5 of them would be Herb Williams.
Man, you're on fire with that.
I'm just saying, it's just true though.
Yeah, I know I want consistency too. I hate just letting coaches go and go. It's been a successful season so far, and we're not battling a team that finished below us. We're facing a team that finished above us. You know, Josh Hart was an amazing acquisition. And if I had to make a guess, I'm guessing Tom Thibodeau stays. I'm saying we'd have to lose this series badly for Tom Thibodeau to be let go, or be really out-coached. That's the other dynamic. If he
Yeah.
gets really out-coached, because I keep mentioning adjustments, man, it's all up to Tom Thibodeau. We think about this, ladies and gentlemen. We have an opportunity now to go back to MSG with home court advantage now. It's 1-1. All we have to do is win both games in MSG with our crowd.
Yeah.
With our crowd, with our home cooking, our bench, our role players feeling comfortable. And we should swarm them early, like clamp them down the way they did to us tonight. And I'm hoping we still both win both, EJ. I don't care if it's by 1 point. If we just win both and we go up 3-1, that's going to be great. Otherwise, I really see this thing going 7. If you had to guess right now, how many games does this series go? And you don't have to tell me who wins. Just
I said it before. I think it's going 7. I
oh,
definitely, I mean, and this is why I struggled when we made the prediction shows. Like, I struggled, but this is the kind of team, like, you know who the Knicks remind me of, and I'm not a fan of this team. It's like they remind me of the Jets, where I'm sorry, I'm a Giants fan. I'm a huge Giants fan. But like, when you get to know your team really well, you get to not only know like the players really well, you get to understand the organizational psychology of the team. And you can just like, even when the team is good, you know, like, these are the certain like little mental holes I know that the team has. So I've been a Knicks fan my entire life. I'm the only person in my family who's a Knicks fan. My family mocks me. They make fun of me because I'm a Knicks fan. They make fun of me because I'm so passionate that I like, well, guys in the chat, you know it. You have family members and friends who they mock you because you're loyal. You're a good person. I'm telling you, you're a good person because you're a loyal Knicks fan. That makes you an incredible person. If you are married, whomever you're married to, they love you because you're loyal. You're loyal to the orange and the blue, which means you're going to be loyal to people. But here's the thing about the Knicks, and here's the thing about the Jets, right? Sometimes we don't know how to do well with prosperity. Sometimes, like when we're expected to do well after having done something well, we trip over our own 2 feet because we're not used to that level of success and that sustained success. So sometimes when we're in the driver's seat, we veer off the road because we're like, yeah, we're great. Yeah, we start reading and buying our own headlines. And so that's why, like, I can imagine the Knicks losing a game or two that they could have won or should have won, not because, like, they were that, not because the other team was that much better. It's just because we lost an edge. We lost the focus. We weren't hustling as much because we're reading our own press clippings too much. We were on Twitter too much. And we were like, we were looking for all of the tags where people were talking about how great we were. So that's why I can see the series easily going seven.
Yeah, look, it's the most evenly matched series in the
Yeah,
playoffs going in. 4v5 normally is, but these two teams, um, although the season series was comfortable in the Knicks' favor, 3 games to 1. Playoff ball is different. That's my biggest concern with Tom Thibodeau, and a guy like Mark Berman always tells us, as much as I hate listening to it, he always says Tom Thibodeau's um, regular season record is inflated.
yeah.
You know, guys don't. There's no load management. There's none of that. But in the playoffs, do we have another gear we can go to, whereas other teams sometimes can? Um, Now, I'm really feeling bad about calling Emmanuel Quickley as the player that's going to give us the edge in this series because it ain't it ain't looking great now. I mean, the
Yeah.
guy looked so good 2 years ago in the playoffs, but boy, has he been so down in these first 2 games. What are you seeing, if anything, about Emmanuel Quickley in these 2 games, and do you think it's correctable? Do you think we'll see a different IQ at home?
I think we might see a different IQ at home. IQ is one of those energy players. IQ and um, Obi, to some extent, I think they'll be forever linked together because of the fact that they seem to always be um, their performance seems to be heightened exponentially when they're playing with a certain kind of energy. And I know that statement may not have made sense, but give me a second. Um, IQ is the kind of player that if he hits that heat check three, he's skipping. He's skipping back onto defense. He's saying something. Obi, there's a reason why he likes to leak out. He they're high energy players, and it part of it is, I think, the psychology of their approach to the game. It's their psychology, it's their mentality when they're playing the game. And so if the shot is not dropping, and if it's not dropping on the road, they're gonna look like a different player than if that shot drops on home court and Madison Square Garden is still buzzing. You can feel that electricity. It's almost as if like there are two separate kinds of electricity in basketball. The home court electricity, where you hit that big shot and you can still feel the crowd buzzing after it, like a minute or two later. And there's a different kind of electricity when you're on the road and you hit that big shot and it quiets the crowd. So I think what we've seen with IQ is he hasn't had the kind of performances that have helped to quiet the crowd. And so as a result of it, he almost seems like a smaller player than what he normally plays as. And so I'm hoping that with the change of scenery, coming back to MSG, 2 games, all he needs is one breakout game at MSG, and you'll start seeing him like doing the gritty down the court, the gunshots in the air, the swagging with the hair. It'll change like once he starts to feel that electricity again. and maybe that'll be what will catapult him for the rest of the series.
Yeah. Also, yeah, you made great points, and I think maybe the end of the season, EJ, where he was starting so much and then back to the bench, then he was starting again, that may have played a bit of disruption in this game of Quickley coming in. But we need the shooting. You know, he stretches the floor. You know, our offense stunk tonight, 90
Oh yeah,
points. Like,
oh yeah,
I mean, that's the other thing. You know, we had no answer for their best defense. In game one, they had no answer for our rebounding and toughness. Tonight, we had no answer for the Cleveland Cavaliers defense. Really, they stymied everyone. In fact, they could have even let Jalen Brunson eat tonight and have 40, and we still would have lost
oh yeah,
because there wasn't anybody else that could give us enough of an edge. But every game in this series is going to look different. That's what's
yeah,
got me
yeah,
positive about it still. MSG, it's gonna be a different kind of game. But can we get on top early? That's going to be key for me, EJ. Don't let Cleveland get out and get any confidence.
yeah,
So be more physical, dominate in the rebounds, play fast. We do play really fast at MSG. We get easier buckets. Josh Hart was amazing in the first part of tonight. He was pushing the break. When we went up 8, like what was going through your mind? I was like, this is deja vu of game 1. We look great.
Well, actually, that should have been one of that. That actually should have been my takeaway from this game. Is the first quarter was an opportunity, like it was an extension of the first game. Like that was okay. Well, the Knicks have, you know what? That is my takeaway. The Knicks have won 5 out of 8 quarters in Cleveland. That's my takeaway, and that should be if we take away if we take away the second and the third quarter, maybe the second, third, and the first half of the fourth quarter, the Knicks have lost. They lost those 2.5 quarters. So that being said, you're now talking about the Knicks really having excelled for about 60% of their time in Cleveland. It's just that second and that third quarter were so bad that it looked more lopsided than what their actual state in Cleveland was actually what it was in reality. So I do think and I do think that the games at Madison Square Garden will be a different kind of game, and perhaps they'll even be a pretty safe. I'm not going to say a blowout win for the Knicks for Game 3, but my prediction would be that they might have a double digit, like a 12-point win.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, 100%. I think the Knicks win game 3. I think game 4 for me is going to be the most difficult, fam. I do think they're going to adjust to the Jalen Brunson trap, and Vaughn made a great point in the chat. I was said earlier, what's our adjustment to the trap is having JB play off ball.
Hmm.
You know, allow Quickley or someone else to play on ball a bit more, and let Brunson play off ball a little bit. But look, to me, our role players are the difference in this series. Nothing has really changed for me, ladies and gentlemen. The Knicks' edge was our depth. And if Quentin Grimes, RJ Barrett, and Emmanuel Quickley don't play any better, we're going to lose this series. Because Darius Garland and Spider Mitchell are great players. They are all-star, all-NBA caliber players. And Jalen Brunson in the backcourt can't do it all by himself.
Yeah.
Quentin Grimes is his starting backcourt partner. He needs to give us more. Or Emmanuel Quickley gives us that equal production coming off that. Because we haven't even talked about, Mobley. Let's say he has a breakout game. The Cavs have more levels offensively they can go to, and so do the Knicks, which is making this series very, very fascinating, man. I cannot wait. And before we get out of here for tonight, just give me a few more keys to game 3.
Key to Game 3. Julius needs a really, really scorching hot start to Game 3. When Julius starts off and he's cooking, it's barbecue chicken. And what that does is that it opens up the floor for Jalen. And so I think that with that, if Julius can start blazing, he's hitting his shot consistently, it'll pull Evan Mobley from out of the paint. It'll open up the floor for Jalen Brunson to penetrate a little bit more. That's really going to be very important. The other key that I'm gonna really say is IQ. Emmanuel Quickley, God's son. We need him to get a divine blessing and a resurgence of his game. If we can get Emmanuel Quickley, and CT, if you can hit me with the Angels bells, if we can get God's son to find that divine game and really be a spark for that second unit, I really think that between Julius being able to open up the game, a breakout game for IQ, I do think that the Knicks would be able to win the game by at least 10 or 12. But as Kaiser says, and Kaiser has been dropping some gems all night, if Julius is unhealthy and that ankle is bothering him a little bit more than he's letting on, that'll go a long way in determining the fate of Game 3. So Julius, you are the key. IQ, you might be the answer.
Yeah. Hey, you said it, man. Great points all night long. Disappointing night overall, but we're in this series, baby. We have home court advantage. That's what I would have signed up for. Think of it like the series is just starting now, but game 1 is at MSG. The Knicks finished in 4th. Cleveland finished in 5th. So let's just erase what happened in game 1, game 2, come out and start afresh. Quentin Grimes, RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, home cooking. Julius Randle plays amazing, all NBA All-Star at MSG. We know Jalen Brunson's going to turn up, and we know the crowd. The crowd is that factor, ladies and gentlemen. They're going to absolutely turn up, just like the chat turned up tonight to talk about this. CT, my man EJ, let's win this game 3, game 4, right? Cleveland showed up. I want to give Cleveland credit as well. Cleveland fans show up as well. Salute to you guys. You won the game you needed to win. But EJ, take us out.
Hey, everyone. Knicks Buzz, thank you so much for blessing us with your presence in tonight's show. Thank you so much. Shout out to Brian. Shout out to David. Kaiser Soze, thank you for holding us down. David, thank you so much. B. Willis, everyone in the chat, thank you for so much love. Tomorrow, dollar Bill, y'all, is going to be with us. Bill Daughtry, the legend, is going to join us tomorrow night. So join us tomorrow. Knicks Buzz. Keep the streets buzzing, everyone.
That's it. Be well, Knicks Nation, all the diehards. Salute. See you soon.